All right, Chelsea here with Tommy London via Zoom. Good to connect with you again after the Metal Hall of Fame red carpet. How are you doing
Yes.
today?
Great to see you again. I'm doing awesome. Thank you. How about yourself?
Doing great. Thank you. Excited to dig into some fun facts about your music career and your radio career and anything else you want to share with us today.
All
So,
right, great.
excited to talk to you. Well, I'd like to pick up where we left off basically, because on the Metal Hall of Fame red carpet, we had a quick interview, a little bit of a touching upon your music and radio career. But right after the red carpet, you went inside and both inducted and accepted the award on behalf of Ricky Rocket. So, can you talk about that and just how the rest of the Hall of Fame went for you?
Yeah, the Hall of Fame. That was my first time experiencing the Metal Hall of Fame. It was fantastic. It's just so good to have heavy metal and hard rock music acknowledged because I tell you what, like at the Grammys and other places, it's not acknowledged and it's very disappointing. Um, like this year, not I'm gonna go on my rant, I guess. Like with the Grammys, how whenever people pass away, they give acknowledgement and respects, but no respect for Jack Russell of Great White or John Sykes of Whitesnake. And I mean, how hard is it just to throw a clip of them into the whole montage and just pay tribute? They're it's just I don't know. That just really pissed me off. But I'm glad the metal community sticks together and we have our own thing going on. And Ricky Rocket, who yes, I was inducting. Unfortunately, wasn't able to make it that night due to the wildfires that were happening around his home. So I not only inducted him, but I accepted the award in his honor. And he said he's very grateful for the award and for all the metal heads that have supported him throughout the years. And he said he will be there next year to celebrate with everyone. So
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah, he's hitting the road this year with his band, the Rocket Mafia, which is
Yes, I heard
yeah.
about that
So
actually. I was hoping to ask him about that on the red carpet, but we completely understandable that he couldn't make it. There was a lot of stuff going on that night, but it's good
yeah.
to know that he's got some projects and things going on too. But yes, I'm also with you on that Grammys statement there. I mean, metal is a tiny part of the Grammys. They do have a metal category, but I feel like
Right.
most of the time it doesn't even get shown in the broadcast. Usually it's something off screen, off to the side, doesn't really get counted. So it definitely is cool to have a whole night dedicated to just metal Hall of Fame and we can, focus on our own thing basically.
Yeah, speaking of, I think I could be wrong about this, but I think when they first had the metal category at the Grammys, Metallica were in the running. Everyone and their mother said Metallica are taking this home. You know where this is going, right? And Jethro Tull got the award. Are you kidding me? Like, he's great in his own right. He shouldn't have been in a metal category. I think he even has said this. And I remember watching it on TV. I was like, you got to be kidding me. We get this
Right.
close. And really?
And then it's like, what is he doing there? Exactly. It's not a diss to his music at all, but just not quite the right
No,
category
right. You
there.
can't make it up. You can't make this up. It's
But
so
I mean,
funny.
it happens with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame too. I mean, half the stuff is definitely more the pop side. There's been a lot of other genres that are not quite rock that find their way in there. So I don't know. They're a little too flexible on how they categorize these things.
Right. And you know what's interesting? I'm so happy you brought this up. You know what's interesting about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I was there a few times this year, actually, and I haven't been there in years. And they've got some great exhibits. It's really done well, the Hall of Fame. And there was one part of the hall where they have a computer where you can type in who you feel should be inducted next into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And they have all the standings there. I'm sure they have it online as well. I'm sure you could do this on the website. But it's there for this isn't connected to the website. This is strictly people who come into Hall of Fame who they vote for. And I think this tells a lot about your audience because the top 10, I mean, I'd say half of the artists in the top 10 were heavy metal. Motley Crue, Poison, I believe. Iron Maiden was number one.
There you
So
go.
that tells you who's walking through the Hall of Fame doors, what they're into. And I thought that was very telling. And if you know that audience is coming to your venue to spend money and to go there, maybe you should start inducting more of those artists and more of them will come. Just saying.
No, I
That's just
definitely
simple
with you
business.
on that. For sure. No, I mean, definitely. I mean, I feel like you just see those opinions everywhere, and then people react in unhappy ways usually when they see the results of
Right.
these Hall of Fames and, Grammy Awards and things like that. But nobody really seems to be listening. So I don't know.
No.
Hopefully, eventually that'll switch around. Maybe somebody will take a page out of the Metal Hall of Fame's book one of these days.
Yeah, maybe they'll combine efforts. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So also on the red carpet then, we touched upon your music career a little bit. So I would
Mhm.
love to dig more into that and your
Yeah.
journey as a singer and songwriter, especially since you have a new single coming out soon. So to
Yes.
start off, when did you first get into songwriting?
Well, I've been a singer and songwriter since I was a teenager. I've been playing in bands, and I was always in original bands. And then I was in a cover band for a bit, just because when the original band had just run its course, I still wanted to sing. And I didn't feel like going through all the work. I was like, man, I'm not ready to start a new band up, but hey, we can do these cover songs and make a quick buck. And that was a lot of fun. And then when I was ready to get back into the ring, I was living in Pennsylvania at the time. I was born in Queens, New York, but I was raised outside of Philadelphia in the suburbs. We would often go into Philly to play. That's where you had to really go for original music, not in the suburbs as much, into the cities, or Jersey, we would go to as well. And yeah, so then when it was time for the next chapter of pursuing music, I was like, it's time to go to New York. My family's from New York. I was always in New York, and I don't know, my instincts told me this is where I should go, and I was right. I went out there. I formed a band called the Dirty Pearls. You can find our stuff online, and man, we did so much fun stuff. We would do we would tour. We'd always tour like the West Coast. We'd fly out. All the money we made on the East Coast, we would use it to fly out to the West Coast and then tour up and down the West Coast. And we had some of the best times ever. And that's where we first played with Steel Panther, who were actually called something else before that. What was it? Metal School. I don't think it was that early. They've been called a few names, and but that was always like the big gig on the West Coast. This is before they had their record deal and stuff.
Okay.
And whenever we came to town, they'd always have us open the show, and that was a great way to earn the following. Now, keep in mind, this is before Facebook and the Instagram. You really had to go out there and hustle. But I think MySpace might have just been starting. Like this, is how far back this goes. And we were. I remember actually it was just starting because we were using it as a tool, and we were just like, whoa, this is wild that this MySpace thing is working. People are coming out to see us play because they saw it on there. And then we would do all those kind of gigs, and then we started getting asked to open up for some really great national acts. Twisted Sister, Motley Crue, The Darkness, Scott Weiland, rest in peace, opened for him. Cheap Trick, and a few others. And we did well in New York City, just never got the big record deal and things like that, but we sure had fun trying. I'm not gonna lie. Oh, the biggest show ever was when we opened for Kiss.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Or as I like to say, Kiss closed for us.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
And that was yeah, that was pretty epic for us because we were all such big Kiss fans. And that ran its course. And then I went solo, and I put out a solo record called Emotional Fuse. And I don't know when this interview is going to drop, but I have a new single coming out called Wicked Ways. A video will be following that as well, which is on the record. It's on the album. And I'm going to premiere that on Hair Nation.
Very cool.
Yeah, when it drops on, like I said, I don't know when this is airing, but when is this going to air? Is it going to air soon?
Yeah, within the next week.
All right, bam. So the week that this airs, the single is out and about. Yes,
There you
Wicked
go.
Ways. So check that out. Anywhere that you stream music, you'll find it.
Very cool. No, that's great that you're leveraging the SiriusXM Hair Nation to debut it as well. You have a lot of loyal listeners on there that'll be excited to hear your music. And
Yeah.
you've said that your path, led you to SiriusXM Hair Nation, and of course you do Ozzy's Boneyard and Classic Rewind now as well. So just from your in-depth knowledge and love of this music, so what first drew you to the genre?
Um. Wow, that's a good question. I grew up during that era of all these bands being on MTV, and that's what lured me in, and I just loved like the theatrics of it all, the image of it all. I've always been a fan of just big, catchy pop melody. And I use the word pop loosely because, well, I mean, let's just be honest. Nikki Sixx knows how to write a hook. Bon Jovi knows how to write a hook. You can say metal and hard rock all you want, but a lot of those melodies are very pop and have that hook in them, very cheap, tricky,
Radio
I guess.
friendly.
Yeah, radio friendly, like Poison especially.
Yeah.
And then I loved all the heavier stuff, was in the Metallica and Ronnie James Dio and the older stuff. But I grew up with that '80s hair rock, and man, I would run to the newsstand every month to pick up every magazine, and I'd be so disappointed if I went there early and the new magazines weren't out yet, like Rip and Metal Edge and Hit Parader and Circus, and each one had its own personality. In terms of, I knew if I got the metal edge, I was going to get some really great still shots to hang on the wall. I knew I'd have some really cool interviews in there because I loved interviews that you would have that was almost like a play that you read. So it would say like, Hip Parader, and then it would have Vince Neil and it would show you what he said. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Metal Edge always broke it down like that, which I appreciated. It wasn't like reading an article. Some of them would do. Hip Parader, I think, would do that. Circus was always great for the live photos. Like I just knew what one was what. And then of course I tear out all these pictures and plaster my walls. And that's what's kind of weird with social media today. Um, though you can interact with the rock stars of today, yesterday, whatever, in a way, and get to know them a little more personally, I guess, like, you can watch Ozzy Osbourne cook eggs, but I don't know how cool that really is. I don't want to see Ozzy in his pajamas. I want to see him looking like the Prince of Darkness, or I
Yeah.
want to. What I grew up in an era where you just assumed that Kiss always wore the makeup. That you just
Right.
assumed that Motley Crue always wore the outfits they wore on Shout at the Devil. They did not, they weren't wearing flip flops and Hawaiian shirts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what you grew up with. It was like the magic. And I loved all of that too, the theatrics of it all. And that's what made me, love their music even more. And as for the knowledge of the bands, I read every album from beginning to end. I could tell you who wrote what song,
Nice.
like ridiculous stuff. And the magazines, like I said, I read everything and soaked it all in. I didn't quite soak in the algebra, the book that I was supposed to be studying in school, but I
Who
soaked
needs
in
it?
those Metal Edge and Hip Raider magazines. So that at the end of the day, I guess that was my high school or college because it led me to this career. So
That's very cool. Now I completely relate to a lot of things you're saying. I mean, I love those magazines and I wish that there were things like that these days. I mean, there's a few magazines out there, especially from the UK, and there's like that Japanese magazine Burn that still has like a similar vibe where they do that with a lot of modern metal bands and they'll cover classic metal bands too. But yeah, just that entire scene of the hit parader and the circus, and I have a lot of those magazines that I've just collected and found over the years because I just love that whole concept, like you said, and just the theatricality of it, and also the interviews. I've definitely learned a lot myself about this scene and everything to do with it from the interviews. Honestly, that metal show taught me a lot about the scene and the artists within it too. So
that was a
it's
great show.
definitely,
I mean, every time it's funny. I'll run into Eddie Trunk quite a bit. He was at the Metal Hall of Fame.
yes.
He's awesome. Don Jameson, I run into too, and I haven't seen Jim Florentine in a bit, but I would see him every so often. And I guarantee you, every time those guys go out, someone is asking them, "Hey, whatever happened to the metal show?" Right?
Mm.
I used to tune in every week for that too. I love that show. From what I understand, that show did very well in the ratings for VH1. That to me, it's mind-boggling that it would even be pulled.
I'm with you on that. Honestly, it's kind of a similar sentiment to what you were saying earlier about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, how there is an audience there for it, and the audience is very vocal about being there for it. But in terms of what happens on the network side of things, totally
Yeah,
different story.
you know what it is with the metal scene, past, present, or future. They're very dedicated. They're loyal, and that's why I was always surprised that with the metal show, how it couldn't find a new home. But I
True.
mean, maybe who knows the logistics? I don't know the logistics. I'm just talking as a fan who just
Of
loved the
course, yeah.
show and would love for them to, but maybe they had other schedule conflicts and things like that. But yeah, that was a great show. You learned a lot from it. I used to love
Definitely.
when they used to always vote for their favorite albums and put them in order, like each guy. Do you know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about? Like
Yeah,
they would
definitely.
rank like the Van Halen albums,
Yes.
Dave Lee Roth era in order, and the crowd be like, "Boo!" Like that was why would you put that at number one? And that
No, definitely.
was
There was a
fun.
lot of fun segments. They did things like that. And then, of course, the stuff
Dump
with the
the
trunk,
trunk.
obviously, which I feel like he still, I don't know if he does that still. I feel like for a while he was doing that on Hair Nation and his Trunk Nation show. I don't know if he still does it right now, but that was a fun segment to watch too.
Yeah,
And
that
I
was good.
remember distinctly one episode where John Five was on it and they were just completely messing around with him. Like they kept like having him pop in and appear in different parts. Like he was in the audience, then he was backstage, then he was on stage. Like it was just some silly episode that I'm like, I like that, even though they did have a lot of serious talk about the music. And like I said, I learned a lot growing up as well, just about, the music and all the classic artists and everything. They still had a lot of fun with it. They put a lot of silly things in there too.
Yeah, yeah. I used to like how they'd always have a guest guitar player.
Yes,
Do you remember that? That was cool. And they'd be like the band leader, but a one-man band, of
exactly.
take us out to commercial, and it'd be like Yngwie Malmsteen or something.
Yes, exactly. That's great. Who's
That's
usually
hilarious.
probably not
Great.
on network TV that often. So that was
No,
great.
right. That's what made it so cool and different,
Yeah,
That
definitely.
was so dope.
So also, connecting your music with this world. You've also gotten to perform with a lot of classic artists from the genre that you cover with Hair Nation. So what have been some of your favorite on-stage moments with that?
Well, I'll tell you what, my biggest thrill ever singing on stage with another artist was Bret Michaels asked me to sing with him at his party gras. I'll backtrack for you. My old band, the Dirty Pearls, we opened for Bret a few times. And when I interviewed Bret at Hair Nation, this is years after that, I mentioned to him off the air that we had met before, and that my old band, the Dirty Pearls, had opened for him. He goes, "Oh yeah, I remember." I said, "No, you don't, Bret Michaels. You do not remember. You have a million of local bands that have opened for you." No, 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 I remember. I don't know if he does or he was being nice. Because he's very sweet. He's a very genuine person. And he was like, "Bring it up on the air. Bring it up on the air." In which I didn't, but he did. And then he asked me on the air. He goes, "Listen, I want you to sing with me, the party gras at PNC Arts Center, because I lived in New York City at the time." And I was like, "All right." We got off the air. I said, "Hey, I don't know if that was a bit." I said, "But I'm in. I will totally jump up and sing with you." He goes, "I meant every word of it. Hit me up when we get close." So we got to the date. I come out. I sing nothing but a good time with him. You can find the video on YouTube, and that was just so cool. And I remember what he said to me when we were gonna hit the stage. He said, "Listen, I want you to do one thing." And I go, "What's that?" He goes, "I want you to act like it's your show. Go out there and just act like it's your show." I said, "Okay." Right. So just go out there, and there's Bret Michaels, and it was he's really cool, man. And then last year at the M3 Rock Festival, which I hosting that this year as well. We could talk about that in a minute.
Yep.
He asked me to come out and sing with him again, and this time we upped the ante. I'm singing with him and Dee Snider of Twisted Sister. I'm like, oh my God, I'm out with these two rock icons. And yeah, I don't think it got any cooler than that for me. That was really awesome.
That's really
So,
cool. Definitely a lot of fun. And all East Coast folks as well. Bret from
yeah,
Pennsylvania, D. Snyder from Long Island, which I'm also from, and you're from New York. So I like that you guys
right.
had a little East Coast connection on stage
That's
there too.
true. That's funny.
That's great. And you mentioned also, I believe, on the red carpet that you've moved to California now. So it's funny you have those East Coast roots, but you said just now with Dirty Pearls, you always loved coming out to California and touring and
Yeah.
everything. And now you're actually living here too. So you're doing Hair Nation and all the serious stuff from here now too.
Yeah, yes, I do it all from my studio here. I don't have to go into the SiriusXM studio. I do it from my home studio. Though there are times that I do go into SiriusXM for maybe like interviews or from time to time. Britt Lightning, my girlfriend of Vixen, and I we did the live New Year's Eve show with the callers. It's always live, but we had the callers calling in, and man, it was just so much fun. We did that in the studio. So there's times I do have to go to the studio, but 9 times out of 10, I'm doing it from my home, which is cool. And yeah, it's the best job ever. I love it. I'm very grateful for it. All the listeners and fans are so awesome. And it's funny when I do this show, I don't know who's listening, if anyone at all, right? And what's great is when I go to these festivals and host or whatnot, or hang out at the Rainbow in Hollywood or something, you'll run into someone who surprisingly enough recognizes you from radio, and always have kind words to say, or they bring up things I've done on the air, and I'm always like, "Oh, that maybe I forgot about," and it's so cool that they remembered. And yeah, so it's I love the job. I'm like I said, I'm very grateful that I fell into it. I look forward to talking to the listeners and about these bands and their music every day. I truly do.
Great. And that is one good side to social media as well, is that the listeners can visually recognize you because they can connect with you in that sense as well. You know, you're the
Right.
radio personality, which that's another thing you were saying about how the artists always used to have this, air of mystery and this kind of distance because you weren't seeing their personal side on a social media. I feel like radio definitely used to have that as well. There was a big air of mystery to radio personalities
Yeah, you're right,
originally.
because you couldn't just look them up.
Exactly.
You couldn't see what's that guy look like. You couldn't. It was you'd have to. You know what's funny? Like growing up, and I would go to an event that a particular DJ was going to be at. If you didn't see them once or twice on the local news for whatever reason, you'd show up at the event and you'd be like, "Wow, that's what Pierre Robert looks like." He was like a Philly DJ. And it was just like, whoa, that's what he looks like. Like, he doesn't look like he sounds, which I get all the time too. People always say to me, because I have my hair as a pompadour. People always be like, "Oh, why don't you have long hair?" I gotta have long hair to press play on, Motley Crue for some reason. Those
Apparently.
guys barely don't. Half these guys don't even have long hair anymore. But I gotta have long hair. That was funny,
No, I mean that's the thing. People kind of get their own mental image though.
right?
They hear you and they put a face, even if they, and then they look you up or they find you at an event. They're like, oh, okay, that's not what I expected. But or sometimes you're exactly what they pictured. It's like just people in their own heads, honestly. But yeah, you of course walked the red carpet of the Metal Hall of Fame with the wonderful Britt Lightning, and it's always great to
Yes.
see her. She was also honored at the She Rocks Awards last year, which we covered at Metal Magnitude. And I heard that you two first met at the M3 Rock Festival. Is that right?
Yes, we did. We met it was 2 years ago at the M3.
Very
And
cool.
she was playing. I knew she was playing, of course, and I was looking forward to meeting her. I'd never met her prior, and I was like, I think I'm gonna try to get this girl's phone number, right? And we had a great conversation. We hit it off. I got the phone number. We stayed in touch, and now here we are. Yeah, 2 years later,
Very
still going
nice.
strong. Yeah.
Very cool. Rock and roll bringing people together. We love it. So
And
yes,
well, M3 this
yeah,
year, I'll be hosting.
just
Vixen
about
will
to
be
ask.
playing once again. So we'll be going down memory lane.
Aw.
And yeah, we actually, yeah, last year I hosted. Vixen did not play. Britt came with me. And every year now it's a tradition. We take a picture where we first exchange those numbers.
Aw, that's cute.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, yes, I mean, you're also hosting M3 coming up, which will feature the Stephen Piercy Warren DeMartini reunion, which a lot of people are excited about, myself included. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm a huge fan of Rat. I think they're one of the few bands that you can really listen to their album from beginning to end, and every song is just really good. You know, they're a band that should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame at some point, in my opinion. I think it's great that Warren DeMartini will be with Steven. I'm really looking forward to seeing that, as of everyone else. I've heard some interviews with him and Warren, and they've alluded to the fact that this could be more than one, but as of now, it is only one. Maybe they're waiting to see how it goes and the response. I don't know. Maybe we'll get some new music too. They kind of hinted at that too, but I think this is all just speculation until after this show.
They might just be
So,
testing the waters with the show for now, see how it
right.
goes,
So if you
right?
want to see it, you're probably going to have to be at this show.
Yeah.
And well, I'm a huge fan of Van Halen as well, so I cannot wait to see Dave Lee Roth. So you got the Rat reunion on Sunday night. This is a 3-day festival, first weekend in May. The Sunday night, going backwards. Sunday night is the Rat reunion. Saturday night is Dave Lee Roth headlining, and then Friday night you have Sebastian Bach. But Dave Lee Roth, he retired, so he's coming out, and that's just amazing to me. I just can't believe that I'm hosting a festival that Dave Lee Roth is on. Like that's
Yes.
just it's really wild to me. Yeah, so it's gonna be cool.
Iconic for sure. And yes, it's been a long time since we've really seen any announcements from his direction too. So when I saw that he was the headliner, I'm like, wow, that's a huge deal. That's really cool.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is epic. Diamond
Definitely.
Dave. Yeah.
Exactly. I feel like M3 always manages to get some really cool headliners thrown in there. The very first M3 I went to, I feel like it was 2015, 16, somewhere around there. Europe was one of the headliners, and
Oh,
Europe
wow.
pretty much never comes to the US, and I am a huge Europe fan. So that was actually the reason for, being in Long Island, had to go down to Maryland to literally just to see Europe. And then of course I was excited for everyone else on the bill, and it was great to see all the classic bands, but that was one of those bands that you just don't see all the time in the States. So it was cool that
No.
they made that happen.
Yeah. The last time I heard that Europe were going to tour the States, if my memory serves me correct, it was the pandemic ruined it. I
Mm.
believe they were supposed to tour with Whitesnake that year, which
That
is a
sounds
great
about right.
bill.
Yeah, I think so.
Whitesnake in Europe. I think they did that in Europe, that tour, and they were going to bring it here. And if I'm not mistaken, Foreigner may have been on that bill as well. Yeah, I think it was Whitesnake and Foreigner with Europe.
That's
That
killer.
would have been
That'd
a
have been
great
great.
summer concert, and
Yeah,
I think the pandemic ruined that one, and we
as
didn't
it
get it.
did.
But we are due for Europe to come back over here.
Definitely. I feel like it's been a long time. We need to see
Yeah,
them again. So, M3 made it happen that time, and hopefully some other festival will come together and find a reason to pull Europe back here and get them into a US tour for
get Europe
sure.
to the States. Yep.
Yes. So, what are some of the most fun events you've said that you would say that you've gotten to host or even just attend as a personality, like since you've gotten on the SiriusXM side of things?
What's that again? What events that I've been to?
Yeah, so just some of the most fun events you feel like you've gotten to host or even just attend as a personality.
Yeah, well, I hosted. Well, you know what? I host every year. That's a lot of fun. The Sturgis Bike Rally
Mm,
at the
I've
Full
heard of that
Throttle
one, yes.
Saloon. Man, that's a blast. It's a lot of work at that one because I'm running to stage. I'm also doing the radio show, and I'm like a chicken with his head cut off. And every night I'm exhausted, but it's so much fun. They always have. Not only do they have just great headline acts there, they have three stages, okay? So the one main stage has all the, like Jackal. They close the festival and they bring the house down. Like it's insane. Great live band. Jesse James Dupree's is a great underrated frontman, Jesse. Very underrated frontman. But that's where all the main headline acts will perform. And then there's so that's the large stage. Then there's the medium stage that'll have well, Gilby Clark played there a few years back. Then they'll have like tribute bands, and these tribute bands they get are like spot on. There's one called Completely Unchained that really channels Van Halen with David Lee Roth, and man, they bring it, and they really bring it. They're a lot of fun. And then there's a smaller stage that has original acts, and it's great to go in there and see. Who knows? You might be seeing the next big thing that's going to be on that main stage in a few years. So it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. The people there are great. There's a stereotype that goes with the motorcycles. You know what I mean? Like there may be some fights. I've always heard that there's big fights that go down at Sturgis and this and that. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen somewhere, but it definitely doesn't happen there at the Full Throttle. Everyone is peace and love and cool and about the music, and they're drinking and having a good time. And yeah, and I always look forward to going back, and I'll be there this year again. I was on the High Seas Rally, which is a biker thing too. It's funny, I get all these biker gigs. I don't even know how to ride a motorcycle.
That's great.
Hey, but just for the record, the Fonz rode a motorcycle in the show, but in real life, he couldn't ride a motorcycle.
There
So I
you
feel like the
go.
Fonz at these events. Funny. I have the hair like him, so.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah, I could see a Fonz vibe going on for sure.
so there we go. I hit the jukebox. It plays the song. Um, I did the High Seas Rally, like I said. There was Retromania last year was pretty cool. It's not happening this year. We'll be back next year. And yeah, it's a lot of fun that I get invited to these cool events and festivals. And yeah, that's one of the perks of the job. Uh, and that I get to meet these artists too. That's what's pretty wild for me, especially when I first started the job. Um, these artists that, like I told you earlier, that I would tear out of the magazines and plaster on my wall and watch on MTV, and now I've befriended them and I get to talk about their music, and they're still out there playing their music, and people are coming to hear it and sing it. And even a younger crowd getting into it, which I found really interesting. When I was at M3, I noticed it last year. I saw a younger crowd, like in their, you know, I don't know, early 20s, and they looked like they were dressed from 1986, right? And I was like, are they making fun of this or something? I went out and asked them, and I said, "Is this like a cosplay thing?" And they told me no. They knew who I was. They listened to Hair Nation. They knew every artist in each band. They knew every song. So they were really into it, and I just found that really, really cool. And promising that rock and roll is not dead. Whoever tries to say that is definitely wrong.
I
So
100% agree with that. I mean, there's definitely a huge um scene among the younger crowd of people who genuinely, authentically love this music and are just discovering it now for the first time and getting into it. And I agree, it's fantastic that there are events like an M3, like the Hair Nation Festival, which happened a number of years ago, really should happen again. Um,
Yeah, you're
and just,
right.
yeah.
I
And
got to
just
see if I can make that happen.
you should 100%. Bring Europe to it.
Wait, yeah, where did that take place? Was that in LA?
Yeah, it was technically in Orange County. It was at the Irvine Amphitheater, which I think
Okay.
has a different name these days, but it was in Irvine, California.
Because I wasn't working on Hair Nation at the time. I was a subscriber.
Oh yeah.
I've been a subscriber since Howard Stern came, and I would listen to Hair Nation all the time. And it's just like I said, that's another surreal thing that I've listened and now I'm on it. It's funny how life works out. You never know what's waiting around the corner. You really don't.
100%.
Crazy.
I agree with that. Honestly, I have the same kind of feeling with what I do with Metal Magnitude here, being on the red carpet of the Metal Hall of Fame, being able to speak to artists that I've admired and gotten to know and listen to over the years as well. Like it's the same kind of surreal experience, I think.
Yeah, see, that's awesome, right? It's great.
Definitely. So coming back to your music for a moment, about the new single coming out, can you talk about what you have going on with the current band lineup and who's on the recording and all the goings on with that?
Oh yeah, well, the song's called Wicked Ways. Well, with live, I've always had different artists, musicians come in and play with me. My guitar player has always been Matt Hogan. He wrote the songs. He produced the record as well with John Fields, and yeah, he's always my right hand man when it comes to the solo stuff. And then we always get friends to surround us in the studio or on the record. I haven't played a show since last year, and I'm hoping maybe to change that soon. So maybe before the summer, I'll do a solo show. We'll see. It's just like there's so much going on. My head spins sometimes, and I'm actually working on another music project that I can't talk about, but hopefully soon I will be able to talk to you about. So there's a lot going on. So yeah.
Very exciting. That's great. I just remembered something else I wanted to talk to you about because you said about the the cover band that was channeling David Lee Roth vibes. And I was going to say, speaking of channeling David Lee Roth, I went to the Ultimate Jam night and Michael Starr played that night and he did a cover of Hot for Teacher. And I had never seen Steel Panther live or Michael Starr in any shape or form live before. And I was just in the photo pit, absolutely stunned by how he completely channeled David Lee Roth. I was literally in there like, how do you sound exactly like him? Because you do. It was crazy.
Well, that's funny you say that because he used to be in a Van Halen tribute band called, if I'm not mistaken, the Atomic Punks. I had never seen them live. I'd heard about them. And then I saw Steel Panther and he was doing a Van Halen song. And I saw the same thing you did. I was like, oh my God, this guy just morphed into David Lee Roth right before our eyes.
Exactly.
All the mannerisms, everything. Right, the kicks and taking the microphone, like whatever he does with this and everything. I was like, holy shit, this is incredible. And I was always hoping maybe he would continue on with something like that. You know what? When was this? I forget. Maybe was it almost 10 years ago? Wow. When the Eat 'em and Smile band almost reunited at the Lucky Strike in Hollywood. Did you ever hear about that?
Yes, yeah, I actually remember. I'm remembering now as you're telling me. I remember seeing that
Was
headline,
it 10
but
years ago?
I don't know
Maybe.
exactly when it was, but I remember reading about that. And
So
I
when
didn't go to the
when they
event, but
they didn't get to play, as you know, because the fire marshal came down and shut it down because word got out that Dave Lee Roth was going to join him
that's
because you had
right.
Steve Vai, Greg Bissonette, and Billy Sheehan ready to play, and the word is Michael Starr was going to step in for Dave Lee Roth.
Okay.
He was there too. He was gonna probably channel his inner Dave and do these songs, which would have been awesome to see. And then all of a sudden, Roth comes out. Yeah, he was there, and that's when it
Uh-huh.
got shut down. Man, I really wish that would have happened.
No, yeah,
I
that would have been
that was on
fun.
Thanksgiving Eve of that year, and I remember the next day. 'Cause I was with my family in Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
The next day, I went online going, I got to see the footage of this. Where's the footage? Couldn't find it anywhere. I was like, what happened? And then I read that they shut it down. And I was like, man, that could have been the moment where maybe they would have reunited and toured, with
Yeah, good
Dave. I don't
point.
know if that'll ever happen again. Um,
Well, I'm curious what band he's gonna have with him right now for M3 coming up. I don't know if there's been any word on that yet.
yeah, no, I haven't heard anything. Right before the pandemic, Dave had a residency booked in Las Vegas that he canceled. Now it was canceled due to the pandemic a little later, but prior he just canceled it. I think I don't know, maybe he had COVID or whatever for whatever reason. I'm not certain, but it was canceled, and he had a band for that, just a bunch of younger guys. No name that stands out to me,
Mm.
and I'm wondering if maybe he's got the same lineup for this or something
Could be
similar. But
similar. Yeah, good point. Well, it's going to be exciting to see. I know there's always surprises around every corner, especially when an artist who hasn't gone out for a while comes back out into the open, and it's exciting to see what a surprise they have in store. So that'll be great for you hosting that. I'm excited
yeah,
for it. So
yeah, and I'm wondering. I'm assuming he's going to do a lot of Van Halen, but I'm not going to lie. I'd like to hear some of that Diamond Dave solo stuff too.
definitely, hopefully so. I mean, given the fact that he is doing it as a solo artist and billed as such, I'm hoping that that'll be part of the set list there.
Yeah, do a good balance of both. I think would be cool.
So another thing I wanted to ask you about, Tommy, is being on three different channels on the radio there, sometimes even popping on 50s gold too. You really work with a
Yeah.
lot of different styles of rock music, different eras, different artists, different genres. But for you, who would you say are some just absolute essential artists in your book, whether it's people that have inspired you or you just really enjoy their music, just some music that you feel like you just couldn't live without?
Wow, that's all over. That's why I did the 50s gold actually. Because I was raised on 50s music. My father would always play Dion and the Belmonts and the Beatles and Elvis when I was a kid. That was where I first got turned on to rock and roll and music in general. And that's why I couldn't wait to do the 50s gold when I filled in that time. And my father, who tunes in all the time to that channel, was pretty happy about that too. Um, but then it was when the 80s came and MTV and well, let's do the radio, of course, local, whatever, top 40, whatever you want to call it. But when I finally found my own lane was when I saw all those bands on MTV, like I said, Motley Crue and Aerosmith and Van Halen. But as for me, my number one band of all time, hands down, is Van Halen. Uh, they can do no wrong. Well, maybe that Van Halen 3 record, perhaps with Gary Sharon, but great singer. Just a hard album to really soak in. But the Sammy era is great. The Dave Lee Roth stuff is excellent. And that's I'd have to say them. I'd have to say Elvis, so going from Elvis to Van Halen and then to like Aerosmith and stuff like that. Kiss, huge Kiss fan. I mean, I remember as a kid when I would see these guys as a little kid. I didn't know what the hell they were. They were superheroes as far as I was concerned. And and I knew they had music, but I didn't know their songs really. And I remember my mom and dad belonged to the Columbia Music Club, where you would get like, I don't know, ten cassettes for like a penny. I don't know how they made any money.
I know.
And I really I don't know how they made any money with
I've
that.
heard of that and I've always wondered about that
Oh
actually.
my God. I built at the time when I was a teenager, I built up my CD collection by going under so many fake names to get all these CDs. I'd have to buy one in like a year, which, okay, I'll figure that out. But I would put on my dad's name, under my grandfather's name, my uncle's name, my brother's name. And I had a huge CD collection for like a couple bucks.
That's
It's kind of
great.
funny. And anyway, my mom and dad had gotten Kiss Destroyer. And I remember just my brother and I staring at the cover of Destroyer, which is an epic album cover if you're not familiar. And it's very comic book vibes.
Yes.
And I remember she put it onto the stereo there, and we just stared at the stereo like it was a television because it was so cinematic, that record. Detroit Rock City opens it up with the radio, and he's driving and it was just like, whoa. And that was it. I was sold on Kiss. So they're definitely one of my faves as well. And I had never gotten to see them with the makeup on until they reunited. And that was like a huge thrill for me in the 90s when they reunited with Ace and Peter there, Gene and Paul, and put the makeup back on. And you know what's funny about that moment that I'll never forget? It was me, my brother, and two other friends went to see it. And when we were driving home that night, uh, someone in the car had said, "Hey, what was your favorite part of the Kiss show?" And everyone named a different song or a different moment, like when Gene Simmons was breathing fire and whatever, the theatrics. But my brother really nailed it on the head. He goes, "You know what was my favorite part?" And I said, "What?" He goes, "When the curtain dropped and you saw Kiss And I was like, holy shit, man, he's right. Like that was the moment. It was like you were in awe, like, whoa. He
Yes,
was right. He's not always right, but he was right about that. I can't deny it.
that's
So
great.
yeah, I'd have to go with that. Kiss, Elvis, Van Halen, definitely my faves. Aerosmith.
That's great. Definitely
Yeah,
essential. No, it's
yeah,
funny because Kiss has that full character to them that they can be characters in a comic book. I mean, I think they've been on cartoons as well. I'm pretty sure Scooby-Doo had a Kiss episode at some point. It's like
yeah. They
they
did.
may not have been their initial intention, I'm not sure, exactly what was on their minds when they created these personas and characters and all the makeup, but they really created something that could be taken into so many different forms of media, and they really are just characters.
Right. Yeah. No, man. They hit it on the head with that. Like no one will ever have anything like Kiss did. I mean, it's just amazing, amazing.
Definitely.
They had
So
their
on a
own lunchbox for God's sakes.
I know, right? That's great. And
Don't get more metal than a metal lunchbox. I'll tell you that much.
like literal metal, actual metal, exactly. No, it's great. And it's, I'm curious to see what's going to happen in the direction of Kiss, honestly. I mean, I know that they've been saying various things. There's rumors all around about whether they'll do like a hologram thing one day or whether there'll be complete replacements for Gene and Paul. And I'm not talking morbidly like after they're gone. I just mean when they choose to retire in like a
Right.
couple of years, and
Yeah, they got the avatars coming out in 27 or 28. I heard an interview with Gene Simmons recently. He mentioned that.
interesting.
Though Paul Stanley has teased that, hey, Kiss could play a show here or there. So I don't know what that means. But we'll see. We'll see.
Well, it's kind of like the Motley Crue farewell tour, and then they came back. It
Yeah.
happens sometimes.
You know what? When these people, fans that is, make all yeah, raise hell because Motley Crue came back, or raise hell if Kiss should even come back. F you, man. I don't want them to ever stop anyway. I didn't want them to
100%.
stop. I'm cool with it. They didn't have to tell me it was a farewell tour to go. I was going anyway. So that's why I'm kind of like, I don't give a shit. I'd rather them get back in the saddle and do it again. You know?
100%. And I also love that the descendants of Kiss, in a way, are also making music as well. Like Paul Stanley's son Evan has a band. Gene Simmons' son Nick also
Great
has a
band.
band right now, and I think they posted a picture together the other day. Stanley and Simmons together again, kind of thing. And I thought that was so
Right. So,
cool.
well, Amber Wild is Evan's band. I've seen them a few times. They're fantastic. They really are. And I saw the clips online of Evan with Nick Simmons. Um, they did a cover of a Simon Garfunkel,
Hmm.
um, "Bridge Over Troubled Waters," I believe.
Okay, cool.
Their harmony sounded amazing. I was like, oh my God, right? And I don't know, like they've been posting things here or there. I don't know if they're teasing or being funny that they're working on something or if they really are. But I mean, I think they should, even if it's just acoustic. I mean, their voices really sounded like they were meant to be together. It was wild. So who knows? Hopefully.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the connection with their fathers there. I mean, it makes sense. Their voices would also go together well in that sense. So
Yeah, right,
hopefully
for
they do something
sure.
about that. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So on a slight non-music note as well, I saw your post a couple of months ago about the Blackcraft haunt that you went to in Salem, Massachusetts. And I personally love haunts and horror events. I've even been a scare actor myself. So I'd love to hear about your experience there.
Oh yeah. So my girlfriend Britt and I went there around Halloween, which is always a great time to be in Salem.
Exactly.
And we went to Blackcraft, and it was incredible. So my good friend Jason Caddick, he designed their haunted house. So Blackcraft have a haunted house attached to their shop. And by the way, have you been to their store in
Not the
Salem?
Salem one, actually. I've been to
Okay.
the Blackcraft store in California, though.
So the one in Salem has a huge in the store has a huge witch on a broomstick that I know, okay, a witch on a broomstick. It's epic. I actually probably posted a picture of it on my Instagram, I think. It's just epic and massive. So much so that when you walk in, you see people ahead of you like, why aren't they moving? Because they're all in awe over it and taking pictures of it. Like it's really insane. Yeah, my buddy Jason has a great eye, and not only did he help with all that, then he with Blackcraft he made their haunted house, we walked through the haunted house. Now, when we walked through it, um, they didn't have the actors working that day. So we were just walking through it to see it.
Okay.
Okay. Usually there's actors in there in each room doing like a scene. And it is like something out of a movie. I mean, it really is the structure in there. I highly recommend anyone going to Salem to go to the Black Craft store and check out the haunted house as well. You will not be disappointed. It's absolutely amazing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Great. So, I mean, coming back to you and your music and radio and everything, just give us an outlook on what's on the horizon for you. We all know about the new single, Wicked Ways, coming out soon,
Yes.
M3 hosting. Anything else you got going on right now?
I've got a bunch of festivals in the works. I'm out, also, this is really cool. I'm going to be channeling my inner Howard Cosell, if you're familiar with old school sports.
Yes.
I will be part of the Celebrity Sports Inc. flag football, which will be aired on Triller TV. It's going to be these celebrities against the Air Force. I'm banking on the celebrities, man. I got to. They got an American Gladiator in there. I was always a big fan of American Gladiators. But yeah, so I'll be hosting that on Triller TV. There's going to be more to follow with that. More festivals throughout the year, and I'm working on new music too. So, but in the meantime, you can check out my solo record, Emotional Fuse. You can find that on the streamers, and some more interviews on the horizon with SiriusXM, Hair Nation, Ozzy's Boneyard, Classic Rewind, and Bon Jovi Radio. I always fill in there too whenever John needs me, and he's an awesome guy. They're all great guys. Bon Jovi, they're really cool. So
Very cool. You're always keeping busy. You got to go in a million different directions at once, but you handle it all and you're rocking it. So
always
good
busy.
job.
Yep, I'm always spinning the plates everywhere. Yeah, I wouldn't have it
Exactly.
any other way.
That's awesome. That's funny. It's also funny about the Wicked Ways being your new single. I was thinking about it. You're at the Metal Hall of Fame, and also at the Metal Hall of Fame was that band Wicked. So I think that's a funny coincidence with the
Yeah,
names there.
they're from New York. They're from Long Island.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they might be from upstate, but yeah, I saw them at
Oh, you might be right.
the Kiss Expo on Long Island about, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years ago. I saw them back then and hadn't really paid much attention to them since then. And I realized that they were still around and they were opening at the Metal Hall of Fame. I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
it was
shoot,
cool.
that's that band from the Kiss Expo. So they're cool. I feel like they have a good
That was
connection
awesome.
with the classic rock. Speaking of younger people being interested in the classic rock scene, I feel like they're doing it themselves right there, which is great.
Oh, for sure. I used to put events together, and sometimes I still do in New York City. I used to put shows together. I didn't play the shows. I would put all the bands together, and they played one of them,
Nice.
and they brought the house down. They really get everyone's attention, and yeah, they're good, man. They're really good.
Good stuff.
Yeah, they're
Well,
fun.
listen, thank you so much for taking all this time to chat with me today. It's been great to get to know more about you, your music, your radio career, everything you've been doing in the rock world, and definitely keep it up. We appreciate everything you're doing, and thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
See you soon.